I'm Ric Edelman. Change is good, so deal with it. Of course, paper money is better. Investing your money wisely, though, of course, is how you make it grow, but are rental properties the way to go? And if your refrigerator was broken, would you call a doctor? If not, then here's a tip. Don't take legal advice from your financial advisor, and you'll see why. All that and so much more on this edition of The Truth About Money. I'm Ric Edelman, and the truth about money is it takes money to make money. But how should you invest? Stocks, bonds, real estate? My answer is just dollars and cents.
Hi, Rick. My name is Holly, and I'd like to know if rental properties are a good investment in today's market instead of the stock market or placing your money in a bank.
Well, it's really not a question of which one is better. It's a question of which one is most appropriate based on your goals and objectives. Real estate has advantages. For example, there is a lot of tax benefit, amortization, depreciation. You get rental income. All of that is valuable. It also avoids the volatility of the stock market. That makes real estate a good idea. On the other hand, real estate historically has not made as much money as the stock market. Also, real estate has adverse tax consequences when you finally do sell compared to the capital gains benefits of stocks and bonds. And real estate is illiquid and non-diversified, both of which dramatically increase your risks. Cash, on the other hand, makes an awful lot of sense if you need the money in a short period, the next year or two. The downside, of course, is that it pays very little in interest, virtually nothing, maximum taxes, and it's not going to offset the impact of inflation. So it's not a question of which one is better. The question is which one is most appropriate based on your goals and objectives. And what we normally discover in the financial planning process is that most people have multiple goals and objectives, which means it's not a question of choosing one versus the other, but owning all three. And the real question is, in what combination? From top financial advisors to TV personalities, we recently asked just one question, Celebrity Edition. What's the biggest financial mistake you ever made?
Probably when I was in Paris buying a suit made on order, which cost me like 3 months of salary, and which was way above my mean. But otherwise, I don't really spend much money except for food and wine and things which are important in life.
The good news is I saved up enough money to buy a car. I didn't go into hock. I didn't go into debt to buy the car, but it was poorly engineered. It was in the shop every other month. It just cost me a fortune. After about a year and a half, I sold it at a very steep loss. So that was probably not a very smart buy. But I learned. But it was I was excited and proud of myself for having the money to buy the car. So that was a situation where I did do a bit on impulse and didn't do my homework enough.
When it comes to teaching our young people how to save and spend wisely, many of us would probably get a failing grade. I recently went back to college myself to offer some frank financial advice to graduating seniors at Rhode Island's Roger Williams University.
What age would you recommend us to start thinking about saving money for a house?
Immediately, as soon as you can. It's difficult. Obviously, when you're first starting out, you might not be making as much money as you want. You're dealing with debts and money's tight. So the ability to set money aside for a down payment might be difficult. What I would rather focus on is the question, are you ready to buy the house? We often find that recent college grads in their early to mid-20s want to buy a home faster than they really should. In your 20s, your life is remarkably volatile. You're going to change jobs more often in your first 15 years than you will at any other point in your career. You're going to change geography more often than at any point. You're going to change relationships more often than at any other point in your career. And for all of those reasons, locking yourself in to a 30-year mortgage with a home purchase might not make sense at all, because it takes a lot of cash to get into a house. Huge expenses. People who own homes, whether it's a condo or a single-family house or anything in between, tend to spend money that renters never spend. Decorating, maintenance, repairs, taxes, insurance, the cost of getting into the house in the first place. And those are all just a money pit. There have been movies with that title. It's a real cash drain. And if you're not going to live in the house long enough, the house will probably not grow in value enough to compensate for all of those expenses, which is why I believe you shouldn't buy a home unless you're going to live in it for at least 7 to 10 years. And in your early 20s, you can't project where you're going to be 10 years from now. You don't know what company you'll be working for. You don't know who you're going to be married to. You don't know where you're going to be living, whether or not you're going to have children. In other words, the home you're probably going to be able to afford now isn't likely good enough to meet the lifestyle of the future. So don't be in a hurry to buy a home. Take your time and wait. You'll often hear the phrase, a starter home. Let's buy a home now, it's cheap, it's affordable, it's a one-bedroom condo or an efficiency in the city, and you'll sell it later and move up into something else. Forget it. The notion of starter homes is a scam. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know where the phrase ever came from. It never did anybody any good. Don't go in with the notion of buying a starter home. Ask your grandparents how old they were when they bought their first home, and they'll tell you they were in their 30s, maybe their 40s. Don't be in a hurry to buy a home. Stay loose, stay flexible, stay agile, keep your fixed costs low, and you'll, chances are, do best.
What is the benefit of a revocable living trust? A, it helps you lower your taxes. B, it helps you avoid probate. C, both. Or D, neither. We'll be right back with the answer.
The 21st century is leading us into a technological and informational revolution. But will it be a peaceful revolution or an outright uprising? And who stands to gain from these breakthroughs? In this week's Future Finance, entrepreneur Salim Ismail says investors need to be thinking globally, not locally. Salim, welcome to the program. You are a serial entrepreneur. Most recently, you were involved in the startup of Singularity University. You're the global ambassador now and was founding executive director.
I was running Yahoo's incubator before this. Done 6 or 8 startups. Lived in 8 countries. I'm very confused.
And you are the only person I've ever met who claims to be able to speak 2.75 languages.
I speak English and French pretty fluently, and then a bit of Hindi, Dutch, Spanish, and I couldn't claim to have a language, so it's about a quarter each.
It's like America has 3.2 children on average. Yeah. Explain what Singularity University is.
What we're about is bringing together the leading thinkers in the world in the fastest moving technologies, and we think about how can you solve the biggest global challenge that we have across the world using those technologies.
Are you suggesting that technology is the answer?
Technology is a major driver of progress in the world. And uniquely, we have a whole set of new technologies like AI, robotics, 3D printing, nanotechnology, biotech, medicine, neuroscience, energy. All of these fields are exhibiting characteristics of moving at that doubling pattern that gives it scale. Our leadership around the world does not understand this phenomena. So something happens, we miss this doubling pattern, and then all of a sudden a calamity happens. But if you looked at the underlying data, you would see that pattern and that doubling pattern happen quite a ways early on. So if you layer a solution on top of that, that solution will scale and could solve a global problem.
So that would suggest that the opportunity for entrepreneurship and job growth in new and developing areas is really rather astonishing.
Astonishing and pretty much infinite, right? The fact that the $20 toy helicopters that everybody's playing with, 5 years ago, that cost $2,000. Right? So when you take that across the board in all these areas like 3D printing, for example, extraordinary innovation will come up from the grassroots from everywhere. It's probably the best time we've ever had to be an entrepreneur.
Does this spell trouble for the Fortune 500 since the barriers to entry are getting easier?
Very much so, in the sense that innovation is not done by large organizations. If you look at most large companies, they're now buying innovation and trying to resell it onto their customers.
Therefore, are you suggesting that entrepreneurs are better off forming their own businesses rather than trying to join a bigger company?
A lot of my friends doing the startup world here in Silicon Valley would much rather find their own business model rather than be sold and absorbed into a mothership. And I think we'll start to see that happen all over the world, and especially in the US. And I think the secret sauce is the ingrained nature of entrepreneurship in the US has it gives it huge possibilities.
What does it mean for the investing climate as a result of where we're headed with these technological innovations?
First, that the risk is going dramatically higher. So you almost always have to take a portfolio and a balanced approach to how you're going to distribute risk. There may be 5,000 companies trying to create the next generation of DNA sequencing. We don't know which one's going to succeed, but a few of them will and will completely take the market in the next 10 years. The metabolism of the economy is accelerating, and so therefore we'll have to navigate that in a new way.
Now, aside from the centers of influence here in the United States, what about the rest of the world?
Again, because these technologies are being so democratized so quickly, it means anybody has access to this. Right? Brazil is a massive hotbed for innovation. Europe is a little bit stagnant, but places like Berlin or London or Barcelona are huge hotbeds of this stuff.
So in this new world of massive and radically fast innovation, what happens to the economy?
Well, there's huge optimism and areas for concern. The optimism is the world is moving fast and productivity is at an all-time high. The danger is once you information enable a certain industry, let's say the music business or the newspaper business or ebooks, revenues drop out of the system. We've seen 10x collapse in revenues in newspapers, music, books. So as we turn the world into information, we don't know how that plays out.
Which is scary for the old information age as we now move further into the digital age.
Massive and huge disruptions are now set to hit the manufacturing sector and the services businesses as we figure out AI to figure out all these things. So we're going to see a complete radical structural change in the economy in the way that we've never seen it before. We're at one of those inflection points in humanity where the next 10 or 20 years and how we manage ourselves will dictate the next several hundred years of existence here on Earth.
Pretty exciting times.
Couldn't be any more exciting.
Salim, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
The benefit of a revocable living trust is B. It helps you avoid probate.
A revocable living trust helps you avoid probate. But remember, I'm a financial advisor, not a lawyer, which means I don't give legal advice. Remember, you should check with a lawyer about any legal issues, and that's something I had to make very clear recently to a caller on my radio show. Let's go down the coast to Tampa Bay in Florida. We've got Eric standing by. How are you, Eric? You're on the air with Ric Edelman and Branderson.
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Doing great. How can we help you?
I have, I don't know if it's a unique situation, but I sold a company and took the proceeds from the sale and put them into indexed annuities in 2006 under the advice of a financial advisor primarily because of creditor protection. And over the last few years, the index annuities have basically been flat. Very little return on that investment, and I'm really in a quandary as to what to do.
Eric, how old are you?
I'm 48.
And how much money did you get from the sale of your business?
After taxes, it was about $800K.
And you took the entire $800,000 and put them into indexed annuities?
Correct.
Do you have any other savings, any other money?
I have about $200K that I had in the stock market and took out and went to cash at the wrong time, as everybody usually does.
Do you have a situation that you are aware of that places you at a particular risk of being sued?
As of today, I don't think so.
Did you have that concern when you sold the business?
Yes.
And who was it that you were thinking might sue you?
Well, there were a number of unresolved automobile suits that were pending.
The lawsuits had already been filed?
Yeah, they were already
Okay.
filed, but everything's been taken care of.
Gotcha. In other words, you were concerned that the lawsuits had already been filed. You were already a defendant named in those lawsuits. They were unresolved as yet, and you were concerned you might lose those lawsuits, and you were trying to protect the assets.
Correct.
Gotcha. Your insurance agent, he's not a financial advisor, by the way. He's an insurance agent. He's an insurance salesman who makes a living selling annuity products for commission. That insurance agent, I would suspect, is guilty of the unauthorized practice of law. He was giving you legal advice of telling you how to shelter assets from creditors. And not only is he guilty of the unauthorized practice of law, he's also guilty of giving you extraordinarily bad legal advice. Because if you're trying to shield assets from creditors and you engage in any one of a large number of asset protection strategies, none of them work if you are currently aware at the time of the execution of the strategy that you are a possible defendant in litigation. In other words, you can't say, oh my goodness, I'm about to be sued, I therefore better hide my money. You have to hide the money before you're aware that you might be a defendant in litigation.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me, and at the time, I was, obviously excited about the sale and the lifestyle changes that were going to happen.
Right. So here's the bottom line. I'm not at all surprised to hear your comment that the rate of return has not been nearly as high as you thought it would have been. I'm also worried that you may not be fully aware of the fees and the surrender charges associated with the annuity product or the tax issues because you're under the age of 59 and a half. If you withdraw the money, you could incur a significant penalty and taxes associated with doing something about this. Analyze this in greater detail to answer two fundamental questions. First, should we sell this annuity right now and move the money to something else? Should we move it either to a different annuity or get it out of annuities entirely? That's the question number one. Question number two is, should we hold that financial advisor / insurance salesman accountable for the very bad advice that he provided to you because he was giving you legal advice and because he misrepresented how the annuity product would solve the legal issue that you and he seemed to have been focusing on at the time? You may have a case against the insurance agent and possibly the insurance company, meaning it's possible that you might be able to get your money back or even more than your money back if, in fact, it hasn't performed in accordance with the expectations as expressed by the insurance agent at that time. That is a legal question, and since I'm not a lawyer, since I don't provide legal advice, all I do is provide illegal advice. I guess that's the alternative to legal advice. That is an issue where we would want to get you in touch with an attorney to evaluate your legal rights in that particular area. So there are two separate questions we have to attack. First, the investment management question. Should you keep this investment? Should you sell the investment for an alternative investment? If so, how, what kind, what are the costs associated, taxes associated? Second, might it be appropriate to hook you up with an attorney who can evaluate your legal status regarding the prior advice you received, which was very bad of a legal nature.
Right.
So
right.
what,
Well, that sounds reasonable. My primary concern is looking forward, not back.
Then the first question I posed is the more important question, which is let's evaluate the investment because it's a lot of detail about that annuity. Going forward, what's the best course of action and what's the best strategy to take? When you're flat broke, you can't even afford to laugh. Unless, of course, you're a comic, and then it's your job to make people laugh at your expense.
So I wasn't always a failure. I went to law school. I actually went to Georgetown Law. Yeah, they don't acknowledge me there. It's like the CIA. There's a star of me. They never mention my actual name as being associated with the school. But I'm not sure law school is the right investment at this point. And I remember I wanted to quit halfway through, roughly $60,000 into the experiment. And everybody goes, well, hey, you're halfway through. You might as well finish it. And those people obviously don't know how much money $60,000 is. But I ended up getting a good job at a law school, and that was good. But then I got the comedy bug, and I was engaged at the time, as you can see from the finger, mission not accomplished. But I had said I had a nice paying job, but I was starting to get a little comedy success. So I said, you know what? I think I want to give up the law for comedy, pursue my art. And I remember my ex telling me, well, I don't know if I can be with a guy that's going to make only like $40,000 a year. And I looked at her and I said, You think I'm gonna make $40,000 a year? Oh my God, you have so much faith in me. You have no idea how comedy works.
If you could ask a financial advisor just one question, what would it be? Here's one we hear from a lot of people. What estate planning mistakes do you commonly see people make?
It has to be people trying to do it themselves. I talk to people a lot and they say, oh, my parents added me to the house or my mom added me to the house so we don't have to go through probate, not realizing the unintended consequence of they're going to pay significantly more in taxes now because they won't get what's called a step-up in basis.
It's interesting because I will get couples and maybe it's the first time they've ever had a conversation about money, and they can be on completely different sides of the issue. And you have to work to kind of bring them back together again. And that requires therapeutic skills.
The biggest mistake is they delay it. So they either don't have a will or trust when they come in the door, or they have a will and they haven't reviewed it in such a long time. I had a family that came in once, took a look and said, oh my gosh, the guardian, that's our neighbor down the street that we haven't talked to in 10 years.
It happens. Friends maybe have a falling out, or maybe you just move away. Change happens. It's a natural part of life. And as my wife and business partner Jean points out, in The Other Side of Money, change is good.
Change is going to happen whether we want it or not. And Mother Nature changes every moment of every day, every second, everything, every nuance, every essence of Mother Earth is different every day. Do you know that the redwoods reseed only after there's been a fire? So, you know, we see these fires as something very negative because it's going to destroy our home, but nature sees it as a rebirth, an opportunity to start new. I absolutely would equate change with growth. Absolutely. It challenges us. Change challenges us. It makes us look at ourselves. It makes us uncomfortable, but then we can, you know, step up into the next challenge and be ready for it and be strong. And we learn so much about ourselves when we're challenged and we're facing some big changes in our life. So why are we so hesitant? Why don't we want to change? Why don't we wish to reinvent and experience new things? We know that it can come upon it can affect our health, it can affect our jobs. But you know what? There's something bigger out there that we probably need to experience. And sometimes we need a big clunk on the head to make it happen. It opens up the doors that we didn't have the courage to open up before. You know, as we age, change is so important. We need to be doing those crossword puzzles. We need to be doing Sudoku. We need to be challenging our minds in as many ways as possible. Learn a new language, play an instrument, do Tai Chi, do yoga. You know, our brain needs to continue to learn and change, and those synapses, they actually can rebuild themselves and change. Think about all the seasons as they change. You know, everybody's dreading winter. Well, baby, it's coming whether you like it or not. If you move to San Francisco, okay, maybe there's no winter there. But if you live in Virginia, it's gonna get cold. So embrace it, you know? Put on an extra jacket or, you know, put your hat and gloves on. It's coming. It's coming. You know what? And spring's coming and the pollen's coming. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just the perspective of how you're seeing what's the season and what's happening. So go with the flow, ride the waves, embrace the change, enjoy the day.
Thanks, Jean. A few final thoughts about change and what we've learned in this episode. Major economic changes are on the way because of emerging technological and informational breakthroughs, any one of which could be the next big thing. But be careful. As I always tell you, don't put all your investment eggs in one basket. Also, don't ask your lawyer for financial advice, and don't take legal advice from a financial advisor, because that is the truth about money. I'm Ric Edelman. See you next time. To learn more about the topics we discussed on this episode and a chance to ask your questions, visit our website at truthaboutmoneytv.com and stay connected by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter.